Hello, welcome back again. My name is Dr. Mark Sandoval, and this is the Coronavirus Immunity Challenge. And it's a pleasure to be with you. This is day number 9. We are almost done. But we've learned a lot, and there's some more that we still need to learn, and it's a blessing being able to spend this time together with you. Today we are going to be looking at the topic of herbs, supplements, and immunity. More herbs, fewer supplements, but let's get into the topic for today. First of all, we need to settle some ground rules as it comes to herbal remedies. First of all, herbal remedies and supplements supply nutrients that the cells need in order to function properly. And if the cells already have the proper nutrients in the proper quantity that the cells need them, then supplements will not help, and there's a possibility that they could harm in providing too much of what you need. It's true that you can have harm from too much. That's why we have a problem with the obesity epidemic and all of its consequences developing around the world. Well, herbs contain also many plant-based compounds that have specific actions in the body. And these plant-based compounds, they only influence or enhance the function that is already there in the body. They are not a substitute for the body's own functions. Just like hydrotherapy we talked about, hydrothermal therapy, it is there to assist the body in its function. Same thing is true with herbal remedies. It's there to assist the body in its function. And so if the body does not have a particular function, then the herbal remedies are not going to supply a function that's not there. According to the law of cause and effect, every cause must produce an effect, and every effect must have a cause. And the cause comes first, and the effect follows afterwards. So there's always a time association between the two. Cause first, effect after. So if there's an effect, there has to be a cause. That's right. If the effect is present, then the cause also has to be present, because if you get the cause and you remove it, then the thing that was causing the effect went away. So what has to happen to the effect? The effect has to go away too. So if any treatment succeeds in removing the effect, but it does not treat the cause, again, takes away the effect but does not treat the cause, then that treatment, the treatment will result in some other effect, because the cause must manifest itself somehow. And either it is going to manifest by reproducing the original effect. So let's say, for instance, that there's some kind of cause that is producing high blood pressure, and you take an herbal supplement or other things like that to help the blood pressure to come back down. If the cause is still there, then it's either going to have to cause the blood pressure to come back up and manifest itself, or if the treatment keeps the blood pressure down into the normal range, then there has to be some other effect, a side effect that manifests with that. So therefore, every treatment, herbal or otherwise, that does not remove the cause but successfully removes the effect must produce side effects. That's just by law. And the stronger the treatment, the stronger the side effects associated with it. So if you get very powerful medication, it will have very powerful side effects. If you have a very weak herb, it will have very weak side effects, but they can be there nonetheless. Some people think that, well, herbs are just safe and they don't have any side effects. No. That's not the truth. They do, and they can have side effects, and not every herb is good. There are bad herbs out there. Beer is made from herbs, right? Cocaine is made from herbs. Marijuana is an herb, right? There are things out there that come from plants that are not good. So just because it's an herb does not mean that it is good. So let's dive into some. We are specifically looking at immune function, and we are going to look at some substances, some herbs and other things that can help with immune function. The first one we're going to look at is a dirty topic called charcoal, activated charcoal. And activated charcoal administration has been shown to reduce cerebral malaria in mice. So they're giving it to them orally and induce them with a type of malaria that tends to cause a cerebral malaria. It reduces that rate of malaria and encephalitis associated with it. And topically, on the surface, charcoal has been shown on chronic wounds to significantly decrease bacterial infections of chronic wounds. There's not a whole lot of research related to charcoal and immune function. Most of the research is related to toxicology because we use charcoal in the emergency department to basically nullify toxins or to absorb those toxins so that they have less of an effect. But here at Uchee Pines, we have a long history of using charcoal, of using activated charcoal in many different circumstances and situations, and we find that it's very helpful, very beneficial for reducing inflammatory conditions, helping with infectious complications as well. How would you use it in the case if you had like an upper respiratory infection? Well, you would make a poultice out of it and put it on the chest, right? Taking a poultice and putting it on the chest and working from that standpoint. And there are resources online that show you how to do that. Another herb that has been shown to be helpful with the immune system is called African geranium. African geranium. You see the picture on the slide here and what it looks like. This African geranium has been shown to reduce symptoms of bronchitis, as well as symptoms associated with cold and sinusitis, as well as children that have asthma and their asthma attacks. And for the infectious ones, if it's taken within 48 hours of beginning that particular infection, for asthma, it helps to decrease the risk of asthma attacks in those that get another type of infection like a cold or so on. Who can take it? Well, adults can take it, but there's not enough information related to it or not enough studies to say whether it's reliable in pregnancy or if a mother is breastfeeding. And so from a cautious standpoint, the recommendations are not do it there, although we don't know of it having any problems in those situations yet. Another herb that is beneficial is called American ginseng. American ginseng, you might be more familiar with this one. You've probably seen it in health food stores and supplemental places. And anyway, so American ginseng, the studies show somewhere between 200 to 400 milligrams of American ginseng twice a day. As far as the African geranium, there were no recommended doses on that. So you just have to, look at the bottle and take what it recommends. But here in the studies with the American ginseng, 200 to 400 milligrams a day. And this was studied in individuals all the way from 18 into their 80s. And what it showed was that there was a significant reduction in the incidence, meaning the development of colds and laboratory confirmed influenza, so flu, from influenza virus, the significant reduction in developing those things in individuals that were taking American ginseng as a preventative. And studies have shown use up to 3 grams a day, that's 3,000 milligrams a day, and single dose studies all the way up to 10 grams or 10,000 milligrams. So that's a pretty high dose that individuals can tolerate and not have any toxicity associated with it. Who should not be taking it? Well, individuals who are on the blood thinner warfarin or Coumadin. It's going to decrease the effectiveness of the Coumadin, and so you're more likely to form blood clots, and so that's a concern. Also, there is a antidepressant medication called Nardil, and that one can be affected by it. Also, American ginseng has anti-diabetic properties to it as well, and so individuals who use it and are taking diabetes medication might drop the blood sugar levels too low. So that might be a clue for those of you who have diabetes and want to get that treated. American ginseng might not be a bad thing to try. And also, their recommendation is that this American ginseng, since it boosts or enhances immune system function, you might not want to use it if you're on immune suppressants. trying to suppress the immune system, because now the American ginseng is going to be counteracting those immune suppressants. Also, it is not recommended to take during pregnancy because there is a component of it that has been shown in animals to have teratogenic effects. What does that mean? That it causes birth defects in animals. No studies in humans to show that that's the case, but at least in animals, and so the recommendations are do not take it in pregnancy. Another herb called Andrographis, or Indian echinacea. Many people are familiar with echinacea. This is Indian echinacea, or Andrographis. And it has been shown that if you start it within 72 hours of an infection, developing a cold, it significantly decreases your cold symptoms, and it can improve symptoms twice as much compared to placebo. So and then it can be taken for 2 months in length, and may decrease the risk of developing a cold by half. So it can prevent you, if you take it as a preventative, it can prevent you from developing colds or cut your risk in half. And if you do have a cold and start taking it, it can cut your symptoms by half. And in one study, it was shown to be better than amantadine, which is one of the antiviral medications that we would prescribe in my clinic. And so it was better than amantadine in reducing symptoms of flu and post-flu complications. So those were significant benefits with it. Speaking of echinacea, echinacea is one that many of us are familiar with. Echinacea has anti-infectious properties to it. It can help reduce the risk of developing a cold by 10 to 58%, depending on which studies that you're looking at. For prevention, you're looking at about 800 milligrams 3 times a day. And if you get sick, then that same 800 milligrams, but now 5 times a day, it can be dosed at. It shows that it can reduce your episodes of developing colds by 59%, and you can have a 26% reduction in the days that you have cold symptoms, so cutting it down by about a quarter. And it can, if you're taking echinacea around the time that you get a flu vaccine, it can improve the effectiveness of that flu vaccine. Maybe it's just that the that the echinacea is actually doing its job. And it can perform as well as Tamiflu. Again, another prescribed antiviral medication. The echinacea can perform as well as Tamiflu in treatment of colds and flu. So that's pretty good. Another one is called elderberry. Elderberry, your kids would love this one because it usually comes in a syrup and it's really sweet tasting. And, you know, we like sweet things, don't we? Well, the elderberry, it can reduce symptoms and duration of flu if it's taken within the first 24 hours. And taken with echinacea, again, it's about as effective as Tamiflu in treating flu. And what's the dose? Doses vary, but it's up to about 600 milligrams a day. Now, there's a warning in this, or a potential warning, especially in this season of COVID-19, that there are a certain small group of individuals that develop COVID-19 and have an overreaction of the immune system and damage that happens because of that overreaction of the immune system and production of certain inflammatory molecules or cytokines. And when they have this overreaction of the immune system, then it more often leads to death than not. And in one study, elderberry has shown to increase those same inflammatory chemicals, those cytokines, but in another study, it was shown to decrease those. What is the truth? We're not exactly sure. More studies are needed. So there's this caveat that, okay, well, if it's in the context of COVID-19, just keep that in mind. And what kind of risk are you at? The answer is we don't know. We don't know. But for usual infections, it seems to be a good idea. Now, another one that we're very familiar with, all of us are very familiar with, is garlic. That's right, garlic is good for the immune system. Here's a study of 146 individuals carried over 12 weeks time frame, and they split those 146 into two groups randomly. One group was the garlic group, and the other group was the placebo group. How do you do a placebo when it comes to garlic? Well, you give garlic capsules rather than actual garlic. And the garlic group, they showed that fewer of them developed colds. They had fewer symptoms if they did develop the cold, and they had fewer days that they were sick with the cold compared to the group that was on the placebo. So we can see here clearly garlic has a beneficial effect on infections. Another one that I want to touch on is called N-acetylcysteine, or NAC. This has been recommended by a number of individuals, and indeed there was a study done back in 1997, took 262 individuals, and they took either 600 milligrams of NAC twice a day for 6 months, or another group took placebo. So again, you've got one group taking NAC, the other group taking a placebo. And what it showed is that the placebo group, for all of these, they followed them up and they did blood testing to see if they developed influenza for that year, that season's influenza. And 79% of those who developed laboratory-confirmed influenza had symptoms. They got sick and fever and other things like that. So the vast majority of them developed symptoms, but some of them didn't. No symptoms at all when they came positive in the lab for that influenza. That was the placebo group. The N-acetylcysteine, or the NAC group, only 25% of them actually had symptoms. So that's significant. You're going from 79% symptoms down to 25% symptoms. And so, of course, we don't know what NAC does to COVID-19. We don't have the research related to it, but saying, okay, well, it looks like it could be good for influenza, so it's probably good for COVID-19 as well. And what does NAC do? NAC replenishes glutathione. Glutathione is one of the prominent cellular antioxidants in the body. You need it. You need lots of it. And so NAC is for that, and it's generally regarded as safe. Children can take it, and pregnancy and adulthood, and and so on. And so it does good from that standpoint. But there's a caveat here, and this is why I'm really highlighting this particular supplement. It might actually increase lung cancer in mice. Oh, and well, maybe humans too. Right? Maybe humans too. There are some studies to indicate that it might actually increase the risk of adenocarcinoma of the lung in mice and in humans, and so that's a caution when we look at the possibility of NAC, or N-acetylcysteine. That one I think is still debatable, and more research is needed to really say what the picture really is. Another one, we talked about American ginseng. Let's look at Panax ginseng, also known as Korean or Asian ginseng. This Panax ginseng, you look at taking a gram of it, so 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day for 12 weeks. And what it showed in the study was it decreased the risk of developing an influenza-related acute respiratory illness by about 45%. So a significant reduction in your risk of developing significant or serious lung complications associated with the flu. But it didn't appear to decrease the symptoms, like you felt just as bad, or the duration of the illness. You were sick just as long, but the acute related respiratory illness, that's what was reduced with the Panax ginseng. It's not recommended to use this in children or in pregnancy or lactation, and it's not recommended to take Panax ginseng for more than 6 months in a row with adults. There are studies looking at 6-month length of time of taking the medication, and it appears to be safe up to that length, but there are some substances or toxins, slight toxins that are in there that can be problematic to developing babies with birth defects and also with children. Propolis. What is propolis? Propolis is a waxy substance that the bees make It's not exactly the same as what they make the honeycomb out of, but it's very similar to what they make the honeycomb out of. And they kind of tack it onto things. They can make a tunnel, an entrance, and so on with it. So it comes from bees and from pollen. And that propolis, taking propolis, has been shown to decrease the duration of cold symptoms by 2.5 times compared to placebo. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good reduction. And so there was a certain product, a combination of propolis with vitamin C and echinacea. Of course, we know vitamin C works. We looked at that long ago. And echinacea, we just talked about that. Well, taking this for 12 weeks decreases the number and the duration of, or the length of time that you have upper respiratory infections, URIs. What's the dose? Dose is around 250 to 375 milligrams. And there is not enough reliable evidence to recommend it in pregnancy and lactation, but come on, it's propolis. I really don't think it's going to be much of a problem. It's kind of on the lines of honey. All right, probiotics. Probiotics have been shown to decrease respiratory infections as well. The bacteria that have been studied specifically are bifidobacteria and lactobacillus, as well as some streptococcus species. And what we see is that taking probiotics prophylactically, so on a regular basis, in order to reduce your risk of infection, it reduces risk of respiratory infections in infants, children, and adults by 42 to 47%. So almost cutting your risk in half. That's pretty good. And it can reduce your length of time that you're sick by almost 2 days. Almost 2 days. So that's pretty good. Which kind probiotics do you get? Basically, the higher the number of colony forming units and the larger the variety of bacteria that are in your probiotics, the better it is for you. So if you have the choice between one that it's 2 billion colony forming units and 50 billion colony forming units, the 50 billion is going to be better. Siberian ginseng, that's another one. It's the third one of our ginsengs we're going to look at. And it can be used in treatment for colds, and it reduces the symptoms if it's started within the first 72 hours. And when it's taken with antibiotics for pneumonia, so this is pneumonia studies, it can reduce the length of time that you have to be on the antibiotics, and it can improve quality of life while you are taking it. And the recommendations are about 400 milligrams 3 times a day. Again, we don't have enough reliable information to be able to recommend it in pregnancy and lactation, and considering that some of its cousins, the American and the Panax ginseng, do have some questionable compounds in them for pregnancy, it's one that I would probably shy away from in pregnancy as well. Coming around towards the end, we've got thuja, or cedar leaf oil. And there was a product, a combination of thuja and echinacea, wild indigo, and vitamin C. And it showed that it decreased the variety of cold symptoms, or the severity of cold symptoms, and improved general well-being in those studies. It came out to about 18 to 36 milligrams 3 times a day for 3 to 12 days. This is not as a preventive, but it's actually used as a treatment if one gets sick. And again, not recommended in pregnancy or lactation. So here's some research we have, but we've had some counsel for a long time in these regards as well, and I'm going to end with that counsel. God has caused to grow out of the ground herbs for the use of man, and if we understand the nature of these roots and herbs and make a right use of them, there would not be a necessity of running for the doctor so frequently, and people would be in much better health than they are today. Yeah, I think so. It's true even now. This is God's method. The herbs that grow for the benefit of man, and the little handful of herbs kept and steeped and used for sudden ailments, have served tenfold, yes, 100-fold better purposes than all the drugs hidden under mysterious names and dealt out to the sick. The Lord has provided antidotes for disease in simple plants, and these can be used by faith, with no denial of faith, for by using these blessings provided by God for our benefit, we can cooperate, or we are cooperating with Him. We can use water and sunshine and the herbs which He has caused to grow for healing maladies brought on by indiscretion or accident. Oh, what a wonderful God we have. He has placed in plants. He has put in those plants things that we need. Now, if you want more information on these things, you can go to our website, uchpines.org, especially that section right there of COVID-19. That one has a bunch of information on the immune system and specifically with this particular pandemic and things that can be helpful there. Of course, we have our virtual lifestyle sessions, next one coming up on May 17th. We're going to give you more information about that in a little bit. And our regular sessions, and we have counseling sheets there on over 500 different topics as it relates to health and natural remedies and so on, things that you can do in your own home to keep healthy. Again, my name is Dr. Mark Sandoval. It is a pleasure to be here with you on this 10-day immune challenge, and I look forward to spending our last day together tomorrow. May God bless you as we continue this through this together.